last video, this poem is about children today and how they don't have confidence in the ideas they're speaking about, and how that stems from not being taught the right way as younger children to always have confidence in what you're going to say if you choose to say it.
In case you hadn't realized, it has somehow become uncool to sound like you know what you're talking about. Or believe strongly in what you're, saying. Invisible question marks and parenthetical you knows and you know what I'm saying have been attaching themselves to the ends of our sentences, even when those sentences aren't, questions. Declarative sentences, so-called because they used to, declare things to be true, okay? As opposed to other things that are, totally, not. They've been infected by this tragically cool and totally hip interrogative tone. As if I'm saying, don't think I'm a nerd just because I've, noticed this, okay? I have nothing personally invested in my own opinions. I'm just, inviting you to join me on the bandwagon of my own uncertainty. What has happened to our conviction? Where are the limbs out on which we once walked? Have they been, chopped down with the rest of the rainforest? Or do we have, nothing to say? Has society just become so filled with these conflicting feelings of that we've just gotten to the point where we're the most aggressively inarticulate generation to come along since, a long time ago? So I implore you, I entreat you, and I challenge you to speak with conviction, to say what you believe in a manner that bespeaks the determination with which you believe it. Because contrary to the wisdom of the bumper sticker, it is not enough these days to simply question authority. You gotta speak with it, too.
All right, that poem, just basically highlights the problem with a lot of these kids when they're discussing their ideas. They don't have that inner confidence within themselves to speak with authority and to speak clearly. They look for confirmation and agreements before they're finished delivering their ideas, which leads to a horrible trend that started where kids can't effectively communicate their ideas and confidently communicate their ideas, which all stems back from not being able to properly grasp the English language. And the next slide, it just goes back to how the policy of No Child Left Behind has instilled the thinking of just get it done, just finish it and move on, rather than getting it done as correctly as possible and even going back and doing it a second or even a third time. Overcrowded classes allow kids who may need extra attention the ability to blend in. So you can't see a kid's flaws as clearly and help improve them if they're in an overcrowded classroom and it's only one teacher. So it's hard for a teacher to really get that in depth with a kid when there's 30 other kids who also have their needs. Urban education fails the kids. It fails the kids in many ways, and these are the most concrete ways. The lifelong skills such as reading, even proofreading, reading over your work and understanding it correctly, and then going back and looking it over and correcting it and creating a better product. That method has been lost on a lot of generations, and so that's something I'm guilty of too. I don't proofread as much as I used to in high school when it was really stressed. So I definitely understand where that comes from. Spelling isn't prioritized beyond what will be on the standardized state testing. So spelling, something as integral as spelling to English language isn't given the importance that requires kids to be great spellers. It requires a lot of practice, a lot of daily, you know, tedious drills that a lot of these kids aren't getting the access to. Here is another poem on. It's a play on, you know, proofreading and how it's so important. It's the impotence of proofreading.
The impotence of proofreading. Has this ever happened to you? You work very, very hard on a paper for English class and still get a very low grade on it, like a D or even a D equals. And all because you are the liverwurst spoiler in the whale-wide word. Yes, proofreading your peppers is a matter of the utmost impotence. Now, this is a problem that affects manly students all over the world. I myself was such a bed spiller once upon a term that my English torturer in my sophomoric year, Mrs. Myth, she said that I was never going to get into a good colleague. And that's all I wanted. That's all any kid wants at that age, just to get into a good colleague. And not just anal community colleague either, because I am not the kind of guy who would be happy at just anal community colleague. I need to be challenged. Challenged menstrually. I need a place that can offer me intellectual simulation. So I know this probably makes me sound like a stereo, but I really felt that I could get into an ivory legal colleague. So if I did not improvement, then gone would be my dream of going to Harvard, jail, or prison. You know, in prison, New Jersey. So I got myself a spell checker and I figured I was on Sleazy Street. But there are several mistakes that a spell checker can't catch. For instance, if you accidentally leave out word, your spell checker won't put it in you. And God, for billing purposes only, you should have serial problems with Tory spelling. Your spell check-off may end up using a word that you had absolutely no detention of using, because, I mean, what do you want it to douche, you know? No, it only does what you tell it to douche. You're the one who's sitting in front of the computer screen with your hand on the mouth going, clit, clit, clit. Just goes to show you how embargo one careless little clit of the mouth can be, which reminds me of this one time. During my junior mint, the teacher took the paper that I had written on a sale of two titties. And she, no, I'm serial. I am serial. She read it out loud in front of all of my assmates. It was quite possibly one of the most humidifying experiences I have ever had, being laughed at like that pubically. So do yourself a flavor and follow these two Pisces of advice. One, there is no prostitute for careful editing of your own work. No prostitute whatsoever. And three, when it comes to proofreading, the red penis, your friend, spank you.
All right, that poem just basically highlights, you know, why it's important that we need to put an emphasis on proofreading, because spell check won't do half of what you need it to do. A lot of kids growing up, especially in this day and age, rely on spell check to help them with their papers and things like that. So they don't put an emphasis on correctly spelling the words themselves and, you know, correctly forming sentences. They just basically splash words together and, you know, make sure that it sounds okay when they're writing it, but they don't look it over. So, you know, they don't proofread, so it just comes out half done, and you know that's not a good representation of any student. So these skills that are not being taught in urban schools are really going to affect the urban student going forward, and can affect their potential. On to the next slide. There's less access to tech in these schools because they're underfunded, and the repercussions of that is these schools are learning in a very dated way. They have old computers, they have old textbooks, they have old everything. No calculators. They're basically learning in the Stone Age compared to their to the students in suburban schools and in wealthier areas. Yeah, they'll be less technologically literate going forward, which is again very, very important in today's economy, and because a lot of these jobs today are tech involved, tech oriented. Urban schools have unfortunately mirrored their neighborhoods. To wrap it up, schools have mirrored the neighborhoods, and that's not a good thing. It's affecting how kids eat, how kids view themselves, and how they how much they ultimately achieve in life. Simple things such as food is not accessible in those areas, and the schools suffer because of it. They can't even feed their students. How's a kid supposed to learn when they can't get a proper meal? So these are all the things that are inflicting the urban schools and the urban student, and I felt it very necessary to do my final presentation on this because it's something that I felt very passionate about, and I had a lot of examples of the possible effects and the negative impact it can have on the next generation. Thank you.